America tonight. Very thrilled to have on this show Lance Allred. He is a passionate person, and because I've been listening to his podcast, so I certainly know that, and I've heard that from others. He's a Keynote Motivational Speaker. Woohoo! You want to hear him speak for sure. He's a published author and the first deaf player in NBA history, and there's so much more to Lance, and we're going to just dive right into it. Lance, thanks for spending some time with us.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. It's going to be a blast.
All right, so let's talk about, first of all, your background. You grew up tell us about the background of growing up in Mormon culture, but you had to deal with the polygamist culture of that. Explain that, because I was just reading something about breaking through that and what it was like for you, because you were in a much different world, obviously.
Yeah, so obviously there's a misnomer that most people think Mormons are polygamous. It's not true. About 0.001% of Mormons are polygamous. It's kind of like radical Islam. So I grew up in a polygamous commune in rural Montana, born there in 1981. My grandfather, Rulin, was the quote-unquote prophet. He founded this polygamous group. And the reason why I'm legally deaf, or 80% hearing loss, is that my grandfather was the naturopath. He's the one that delivered all the babies for his commune. But he told my parents not to worry about the RH factor. If you're familiar with that, I'll explain it anyway. My mother was a negative, my father was a positive blood type. And nowadays, a hospital just simply injects you with something, no question asked. But when you're born in your grandmother's bedroom, in this polygamous commune without the medical amenities to take care of this kind of things, lots of stuff happens. But my parents had 4 kids before me, then I was the last one. And when I was born, I was almost dead. And they finally took me to a hospital in tiny Hamilton, Montana, and there was a Johns Hopkins educated resident who specialized in RH, because he was an RH baby himself. And so he took me and put me in the incubator, and I had several blood changes, not just transfusions, but changes over 2 weeks. And so we're not sure if the nerves in my ears never fully developed or if they were damaged during the blood changes. But at the age of 2, everyone realized when, I was violent and very frustrated as a kid, they finally took me to an audiologist, and they found out that, yes, I'm severely hearing impaired. And I could be angry or upset, but because of my grandfather, I am deaf. But he was assassinated 4 years before I was born by the wife of a rival polygamist leader, and so I never knew the man, but I grew up in his polygamist utopian dream. Yeah. And, there were some good things to it. I mean, I had over 400 first cousins, and, we were like little Smurfs running around in this polygamous commune in rural Montana.
Wow. What do you, I can imagine, obviously you speak about that and you talk about it. What kind of reaction do you get from people? I think it's a great story to share because of what people can learn from that.
Yeah. The great thing about my story is that it caters to any demographic. In that it's not just sports, it's not just religion or psychology, it's not just perseverance and achieving your dreams and whatnot. I can customize it to anybody. But the thing about the polygamous aspect is when I was 12, there's some baggage. Obviously every background you're going to have baggage. But at the age of 5, my Sunday school teacher had told me that God had made me deaf as a form of punishment for being unfaithful in the pre-existence. And, as an adult, you kind of laugh at these things like, yeah, you need to get yourself checked into an insane asylum. But as a 5-year-old kid, you're absorbing all this information around you, and the cult mentality is very submissive, very do as you're told. And so I developed a huge victim martyrdom complex. Yes, I'm being punished. God doesn't love me. I have to earn God's love, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's baggage there. And so that's something that people really have to understand about us, too, is that, yes, I have achieved a lot in my life, but a lot of it was overcoming my own limitations, my own thought patterns that I placed on myself that underlying subconsciously followed me and were pervasive throughout my adult life until I finally learned to change it around. And so when I was 12, my father was the heir apparent to the Allred group. He was a doctrinaire. He was a theologian. He's the guy that knew all the history about why we did what we did. He discovered that several of our leaders had been sexually abusing their kids for years, and we were like, if these are men of God, how is it even possible? But we were the only ones that left. Well, my father, yes, I grew up in a monogamous home. He did at one point have a second wife, but she left shortly after I was born, so I had no recollection of her. So I grew up in a monogamous home, but it was normal for, I guess, my cousins to have several moms. So we could say, yes, we were able to leave because we only had one wife and we can move, whereas my aunts were in plural marriages with great guys where they're supposed to tell the second wife, hey, good luck, you take the kids, we'll take the kids. So you can say they were trapped in a way. But if you're unhappy enough, I don't care what your situation is, you'll get out of there in any situation, not just polygamy.
Yeah.
But my father became the scapegoat. Because everyone adored him so much, all of a sudden he's now the apostate. We don't have to think about all these other perverts who are on the council. Let's just focus on Vance. So everyone can bury their head in the sand. And I learned at that age that most of religion is psychology, cult mentality, is that we're going to die, and it gives us huge anxiety. And so we have religion to pacify that anxiety by telling us, yes, there's a heaven, we're going to be okay. But then you take a needle of steroids and you inject it right into the ego, and now you get to tell yourself, but we're special. We have the one true faith, and God knows us all personally, and we're all going to be His right hand, and everyone else is going to be our servants. So you realize it's mostly psychology. There's nothing spiritual about it.
Yeah. So coming from that background, what is your theory, or do you practice any kind of so-called, like you're saying, religion or spirituality, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. He must label. I am a spiritual person having a human experience.
There you go. I like that. That's great. Yeah. A spiritual person.
Yeah. I mean, when we broke away, we did join the mainstream LDS church. I grew up there as a teenager, and so by this time we were living in Salt Lake City, and it was good because it helped me kind of assimilate into the mainstream culture that was Salt Lake City. So I wasn't such a baby, socially speaking, because you kind of had stunted social skills when you go up in a commune, and your cousins are your support system because you're blood. You have to like each other, but. And now that we were moving out and I didn't have my cousins anymore, and that, transitioning into mainstream Mormonism helped, but it didn't really fit because I used the analogy of, like, you see the war movies and a soldier gets shot in the stomach and he's trying to put his guts back in. He can't put them back in. They keep slipping out. So once you break out of one little paradigm like that, it's really hard to fit back into another paradigm very perfectly. It's almost impossible. Yeah. And then also with all my travels, Mark Twain said it best, travel kills all prejudice, biases, and everything. And having traveled around the world for 10 years playing basketball, it's just like, you know what? I'm just a human. Who am I to think that I could possibly put God inside of a box?
Yeah, love that. So you made the transition for us. You saw that. I love that, the talking about Mark Twain and using that analogy, or using Mark Twain to say, hey, you experience the world and you think differently. So you got to experience the world. Tell us how the basketball started for you.
The basketball started right at the time when we broke away from the Allred group. I grew from 5'10" to 6'4" that year in 8th grade. And I had no friends. Yeah, it's just new school. I'm walking around the hallway, and the coach sees me. He's like, hey, you should come play basketball. I'm like, sure, I've never played before. I mean, I was so uncoordinated and clumsy with my inner ear imbalance at the time. And by the way, the reason why I can hear you talk right now is, one, the digital era is a great age to be deaf, and that I can finally hear the diction, but also I have it on speakerphone, and so if you were listening to it, you would have an earache for the rest of the day probably, just because it's blasting.
Right.
And, people are like still skeptical, but when I show my keynotes, I have video footage of me at the age of 12 talking, and you can't even understand me. It's that bad.
Wow.
And you know how, like, deaf people, they kind of talk like this without much diction?
Yeah.
Do this, we talk in the back of our mouth because you feel the reverberation in your skull, and you feel like you're making a sound. But then finally, when I got my digital hearing aids, when I was 16, I was like, you finally start to hear a little bit of the diction in the front of the mouth, and you're like, I see what's going on. And so I was a speech therapy twice a week till I was 16. And, I had to first learn to read the word, watch someone pronounce it, and learn how to speak back in kind. And so it took me, and now after 34 years speaking English, I take the vowel shifts, the A, E, I, O, U, in the context of the conversation we're having, and you piece together what's being said. Because, most people, especially when you first meet, we only say so many things to each other, so you kind of know what the patterns are. And I just kind of just answer everything back because I know that's what's coming next.
And you're able to figure it out. Lance, hold on a second. We're going to continue there. We got to step away for a quick second. We'll be back with more of Lance Allred here in just a minute on America Tonight. All right, we're back with Lance Allred, and we're talking about what a revelation, Lance, I have to say. I think I'm a pretty educated woman, and I have a friend who's a writer, and he's deaf, and he's got hearing aids that he tells me are tremendous. But some of what you said resonate because he's told me about that, and also he says reading lips, especially when someone's kind of
Absolutely.
a talker and they enunciate. So he says, like, it's easy for him when he's sitting across from me to be able to see that. But as you said, so it's better for somebody who's deaf in this age because there's just more modern conveniences that help.
Absolutely. Growing up, I just had those big analog hearing aids. And all that really is just a big, giant speaker being plugged into your ear and just blasting sound. So you have a constant headache as a kid. I hated my hearing aids. I tried to hide them all the time and get rid of them. But, of course, my mom would always pay my siblings to go find them. And so I hated them, but digital is so much nicer now because, one, it's not just blasted sound, but when there's a voice, it immediately registers it and then it amplifies it, but it's nothing crazy. So, yeah, I mean, what a blessing that these challenges that I have, I'm in this modern age that allow me to be successful and to assimilate into the culture. But with basketball, I never wore them because collisions. After that year when I started playing, and I wasn't very good at all, I started playing again at the age of 14. Before that, I was a Nintendo kid, and I was very good at Nintendo. But we slowly started to work, but the catch is, I couldn't tell you this honestly at the time. I wasn't old enough to have this dialogue in my head, but looking back, I know the reason why I got as good as I did, as quickly as I did, was my main drive. Well, one, I love to prove people wrong. I have a nasty habit of doing that. It's a great motivator, but it's kind of empty calories. Because once you prove someone wrong, you're kind of like, oh, okay, now what? But also, I was playing so that God would love me. Even though we had broken away from polygamy, we joined the mainstream LDS church, so we're still talking about the same God, the same Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith and everything. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is still the same God that I've been told that was punishing me with hearing loss for being unfaithful in this pre-existence before this life. And so that was my main motivator, is that I had to work that much harder just to be normal, but also I had to atone for some past sin that I had no recollection of. And so every made or missed shot had eternal ramifications. And so looking back, you might be able to understand now, rarely did I actually ever really enjoy it. It was, I'm playing for my eternal soul, really. Though no one ever really told me this, the information I have been receiving throughout life to this point, and how I've created this really shoddily quilted paradigm, and this is how I made the logic fit. But it's a double-edged sword, and so yes, later we realized that I had obsessive-compulsive disorder, but I kept it hidden through basketball for so many years. And so I would go home after every game, and I would lay there, and I would replay every play precisely in my head and think about what I could have done better.
Wow.
Or every made or missed shot, every turnover. So everything, again, had just eternal consequences, and that's how intense it was. So, yes, it's a double-edged sword, but that's also what allowed me to get as good as I did, as quickly as I did.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how the basketball started.
Wow. And so, you go through and you played for a whole bunch of different teams, and then you get this break in the NBA. You're signed to like a 10-day deal with the Cavaliers. I remember it. I was on the air, actually. It was in March of 2008. Then they sign you for the remainder of the season. What was it like playing for the Cavaliers, playing in the NBA?
I'll tell you, this is where this is the whole story, where it kind of climaxes. But I remember I was standing there on an NBA court in Cleveland. I was shooting a free throw, and I remember standing there and I was thinking, is this it? Is this the best it'll get?
Oh, wow.
Because now you can understand is that the reason why I was playing basketball was so that I would feel love, that I would think that God, I would feel this love that people kept talking about of what God provides. And so once I finally got there, and I was thinking, well, why don't I feel any different? Why do I still have all this anxiety? Why don't I feel any more secure? Why don't I feel that God loves me? But that was the deep psychological stuff. But as far as the perks of playing in the NBA, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, yeah, I had fun playing with LeBron. I know people give him a lot of flack, but I keep telling everyone, context, please, context. This is a guy who grew up in a background where no father figure. His mother, as we know, was very absent. Mm-hmm. And yet coming out of high school with that much money and fame thrown his way, to handle it as well as he did, people don't understand. They'll never know that kind of pressure, but they can sit there and judge. And I tell people, LeBron James is one of the smartest people I have ever played with. Not just basketball IQ, but just pure human intellect. LeBron is up there, one of the people I've known. He's a very intelligent person, but people don't understand that.
Yeah, I've heard that from other people, Lance, too, that have gotten close to him. Like you were close because you're there playing on the team, yeah. And it's what people don't know. It's what they read in the media. Exactly,
and the thing is, and they keep comparing him to Jordan, but Jordan didn't have to deal with social media.
Yeah.
So he was able to always be like an arm's length removed, still mythological in a way. Whereas social media just invades privacy. There's so you either can keep trying to ignore it and be viewed as a petty brat, or you can just embrace it and try to go into it, which people then think you're a diva. So go figure.
Yeah.
You can't win.
Yeah, you can't win.
You can't win. But then, like, the perks of the travel and everything. So people often ask me, like, yeah, what was your favorite thing about the NBA? What do you miss the most? I tell them, towels. Like, towels? I'm like, towels. Do you know how many teams I've played around the world in gyms with no air conditioning, with no towels around, so you're just sweating, just sliding everywhere? I'm like, man, I could just use a towel right now. Because when you're in the NBA, I'm 100% serious. You can put your hand out, and there will be some little minion with a towel ready to put it in your hand. That's what I miss the most about it.
Yeah, you got to love that. We're speaking with Lance Allred, Keynote Motivational Speaker, former player in the NBA, first deaf player in the NBA. Lance, so now you transition that to what I'll call the platform, and you're out there speaking. What's speaking been like for you?
Oh, yeah, so I just retired 5 months ago. I did my last job in Puerto Rico, but I've had a lot of practice. My book tour in 2009, I realized that, I enjoy this. This is pretty fun, and it's the same adrenaline rush. You know what I'm talking about? You get the pregame jitters, and then you get on the stage and get warmed up a little bit, and then some days you don't quite have it, but some days you're just in the zone. All the right words and adjectives come at exactly the precisely right time. And it's the same adrenaline rush that those athletes are junkies for. And so now I get to go stand on the stage and I get to communicate with people. And one, I don't have to listen to them and converse back. It's not like I'm in a loud room where my anxiety just spikes with several people talking. I just have to talk. People have to listen to me. That's not that hard because I've shot a free throw in front of 16,000 people that want me to miss. That's pressure. Just talking for an hour isn't pressure. And so it's, some people are surprised, like, wow, who knew you would, be taken off as well as you did, and you're actually quite good at it. I'm like, well, I guess, I come from a line of polygamous charlatans, so obviously I have a knack for gabbing.
You have the gift of gab.
Exactly.
I love that. I want to tell everybody so you can learn more about Lance, and hey, you could have him come to your area and speak. Who knows? There might be a right fit there. How can they do that? They can go, they can go to lanceallred41.com. You have a book me button right there. They can hit that, right, for more info?
I do. And last week I just signed with American Programs Bureau, the oldest speakers bureau in the world, and they just contacted me and it says, we love what you do. We'd love to have you on our team. I'm like, so you can go to apbspeakers.com as well. And so, yeah, just 5 months in with how fast it's taking off, I mean, I'm just pinching myself. And people think it's overnight, but as you know, I mean, these are skills and connections that I've been developing over the last 10 years as a professional basketball player. And professional basketball and sports is corporate. It's a corporate world. And it's a beautiful segue for me because I don't have to leave any skill or connection that I developed over the last 20 years as a basketball player. I get to just simply roll over all those hours as well as a basketball player that never quite paid off financially that I invested into being a player, and I get to roll them all over into this new profession. So it's just a beautiful segue for me. It really is. There's no hitch or hiccup right now.
I love it. Lance Allred, perfect place to end this. Thank you so much, and continued success.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me, and best of luck to you. You do great work.
Thanks.